Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's workshop. Before we get started, I will launch our pre-workshop survey. So you'll see that pop up on the screen. We'll just take 1 to 2 minutes to fill that out before we get started with tonight's workshop, depending on where you are. Okay, if you just joined us, you will see the poll pop up on the screen as you enter. So please take a couple minutes to fill that out. While everyone is filling that out, before we get started, I will just go over some housekeeping. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Cassie and I work at the Toronto affiliate for Dress for Success. For tonight, you'll see it's a little bit different from the last one. We are using an upgraded version of Zoom. So we won't be able to see you, but you can see us. So you'll see at the bottom, we have a Q&A and then also a chat feature. So for tonight's workshop, if you do have a question for our panelists, we are going to enter it into the Q&A. People can ask any question and people are able to upvote. So if you have the same question as another client or participant, you can go and upvote that so we know the most popular questions and make sure that we get them answered. For any discussion, please utilize the chat, just because sometimes your questions are going to get lost and we don't want your questions to get lost. So please, questions go in the question and answer. Any discussion or chat goes in the chat. And I see a few more people trickling in. So we're just gonna finish up doing our pre-workshop survey. So you will see the poll on the screen. I see a couple people have lost the poll. That's okay. We'll get you at the post-workshop poll, so don't worry about it. And then again, all discussion can go into the chat, and any questions for our panelists, please utilize our Q&A feature. You will see at the bottom that you can see Q&A and chat, so make sure that you are clicking the right one. Okay. So we have pretty much almost everyone done the workshop, so I will pass it over and get started. So I do want to introduce Catherine Curtis, our new CEO for Dress for Success Canada Foundation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to her and we will get started with tonight's workshop.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Cassie. Welcome, everybody. I'm as excited as you are. This is my first workshop with TJX. I joined the foundation as their new full-time CEO 6 weeks ago. So still on the learning curve, but just loving all of the work that's being done across the country by Dress for Success. I am happy to thank TJX Canada and the panelists with us tonight. This is our 3rd year of a national partnership, and we're really excited to present tonight's workshop, which is the 3rd in a series. And I'm going to turn it over to Libby, who is the Director of Public Relations and Corporate Social Responsibility at TJX Canada, and she's going to introduce the team and get us going. Libby?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Are we good? Okay, great. So I'll kick off the intro. So I'm Libby Stent, and I'm the Manager of Public Relations and Corporate Responsibility. And I'm joined, and actually, Mary, if you want to go to the next slide, we've got some faces to go with some of the names. There we go. I'm joined by my team member, Vanessa, who's on our charity team as well. And then we have a slew of experts from our talent acquisition team who are sitting on our panel tonight to answer some of your questions. So firstly, we have Tanya Christo, we have Chandra Cox, Julie Champagne, who speaks French for anyone who would prefer to have some of their answers in French. Just go on to the next slide, Mary. Maya Zivkovich and Adele Purvis-Smith. So we're all happy to be here tonight. In terms of a quick agenda, and Mary, if you would just go on the next slide. Before we get started, we wanted to give you all just a brief introduction to TJX Canada and our charitable initiative, Find Your Stride. And then we'll dive right into the Ask TJX Anything section, where we're going to cover topics like addressing gaps on your resume, upskilling, preparing for virtual interviews, and networking. So we'll have about 10 minutes per subject, so feel free again to send in your questions via the chat, and we'll do our best to answer. So Mary, if you could just hop to the next slide. Perfect. Okay. So before we get into the Q&A, we just wanted to give you a bit of background on TJX Canada, because some of you may not be familiar with the name TJX, but I'm sure most of you, or hopefully, are familiar with our stores, Winners, HomeSense, and Marshalls. So TJX is the leading off-price retailer of apparel and home fashions in the world. We have more than 4,500 stores in 9 countries. We have 4 e-commerce sites and approximately 288,000 associates worldwide. So again, we operate Winners, HomeSense, and Marshalls here in Canada. And then I'm sure some of you will recognize some of our sister brands in the States, in Europe, and in Australia. Some of you may not be familiar with the term off-price. And as an off-price retailer, we do operate a little bit differently than your typical retail store. So essentially, we sell brand name products anywhere from 20 to 60% below department and specialty store prices. We have a really flexible business model. So that allows us to have adaptable buying from various vendors worldwide. And that's how we create that sort of treasure hunt experience for our customers. So if any of you have shopped our stores before, you'll know that no 2 stores are alike. And our sales floor always looks a little bit different in every store every time that you go in. And for the diehard fans out there, you know that if you see something at Winners, HomeSense, or Marshalls, you have to buy it right then and there, because more often than not, it won't be there the next time you come in. So that creates this whole thrill of the find sort of feeling. And I'm sure we all could have a whole other panel discussion about our favorite fab finds, or sadly the ones that got away, but we'll save that for another time. But when it comes to TJX, what it comes down to is value. So at TJX, our mission is to deliver great value to our customers every day. And we do this again by offering that rapidly changing assortment of high quality, fashionable, brand name and designer merchandise, all at amazing values. So Mary, if you could just go to the next slide. Perfect. So speaking of values, this slide is really just a snapshot of our company values. And our values really play a vital role in our everyday culture and how we do business. So you'll see some of our key values are integrity, diversity, empowerment, customer satisfaction, teamwork, open communication, mutual respect and caring, and delivering results. And you'll also see here that we have a strong and long-standing commitment to acting as a responsible corporate citizen. Our key pillars when it comes to corporate responsibility are diversity and inclusion, environmental sustainability, and our charitable efforts. And that's what brings us here tonight. So Mary, if you could just go to the next slide. Perfect. So in 2019, we launched our charitable initiative called Find Your Stride. And our mission here is really to empower women who are in vulnerable positions and help them overcome any barriers that they're facing in order to get ahead in life. And this is by helping them access the skills and supports that they need to take control of their lives, to become financially independent and ultimately succeed. So in partnering with like-minded organizations, our main areas of support include safety and security, education, knowledge and skills training, and personal supports like childcare and wardrobe support. So as such, we're very happy to have brought on Dress for Success as our national partner. Through our partnership, yes, we've provided corporate donations and we've hosted customer fundraising activities, but beyond donations, what we really, really love about this partnership are the opportunities for our teams to get involved and to support in different ways, like today's session. So a big thank you to our TA team again for taking the time to lend your expertise. We're very happy to be here today because we know that when a woman finds her stride, she cannot be stopped. So I'll hand it over to TA. We can get started. Our first section is addressing gaps on your resume. So let's bring on the questions.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya. Really nice to be here on behalf of TA from TJX. We're really honored to be here and can't wait to hear some of your questions. So please, you have the mic. As Libby mentioned in the agenda, we've sectioned each area to be able to focus in on specific questions. So we'll take these next 10 minutes to really address gaps on your resume and just ask away. We're here to help.
So maybe we could start it off with how do you address gaps in your resume? If you've been out of the workplace for a little while, whether it's because you've been at home looking after kids, or maybe you've been out of a job for a little while, how do you best get around this or speak to this when you're in an interview setting?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So I think it really depends how long you've been out of the workforce and potentially why you've been out of the workforce. Most importantly, it's so important to just be honest. And to not try to hide anything, because that's when you're hiding, that's the first clue to potentially some potential employers that there's a little bit of dishonesty there, and they'll start to try and dig in deeper. So please be open and honest. But if some of the gaps are 2-3 months at a time, then when you're on the resume, you can put years in. So you could put 2019 and then start to 2020 for an example. And if it is a longer extended time, potentially you could even put why. Maybe you were caring for a family member. You can put that in there. There's lots of transferable skills that you might actually get from some of those experiences.
Great. I'm just looking in the Q&A here. How do we address the gap that was created by COVID-19?
Chandra, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, guys, I was looking for the mute button there. Definitely just, that's a great question. And how do we, address a gap through, being off due to COVID-19? Again, I'm going to turn back to Adele's response. Definitely be honest and open, address what the reasons were that you were off and why. And maybe talk in that about any experience that you might have done or any courses that you might have taken to kind of fill in those gaps during those times that you were off and due to COVID-19. People are going to understand we're all in this together. We're all kind of in the same boat here, or same waters, different boats. So definitely people are going to understand, the reasons why you're off at this time.
There's a great question here that's coming up in the chat. Would you recommend addressing any gaps in your resume on your cover letter or only in the interview?
So I can take that one, Libby. Thank you. I would say, like my previous coworker said, honesty is the best policy. I would say we should more focus on what we were doing versus what we were not doing. So even on the resume, when we're talking about gaps, Adele mentioned that we can, if it's months, we can actually utilize years. And then at the same time, we can focus more on the skills. And within those gaps, if we were to, if we acquired any new skills, if we were networking or volunteering. So in the resume can also go in a reverse order or focus more on skills versus years into a certain company, I guess company's order. I guess not in a timeline order, so it can go in a skill order to address those gaps. And as far as the cover letter, I would say focus on what you are bringing into versus what you might have missed out due to COVID.
Okay. Another question. How do you cover for a gap from moving to Canada with a lack of Canadian experience? So if you're new to Canada and there's a gap there because you haven't worked in Canada, how might you address that? Do you focus on your relevant work experience from before, or what would you suggest?
Awesome. These are all great questions, Libby. So thank you, group. I'll take that one to start. So first of all, welcome. At some point, we all started, whether we're new Canadians or born here, so we all had an entry point. The recommendation to explain non-Canadian experience is just list you have experience. It may be from another country, but there's transferable skills, and the technical skills from one country to the next, the technical are the technical. Some of the nuances may be related to legalese or certificates or just some proficiency in Canadian law, but those are certainly things that you can discuss during an interview or during a phone screen, that you can just elaborate on what would be equivalent. So help the interview understand what would equivalency be here in Canada. So if you have a degree from another country, do a little bit of research before your interview, and a BA in this country equals X certificate here in Canada or X degree in Canada. And this will help set the stage and sort of put a frame around it to continue on in your interview.
Very nice. There are a couple of questions, and I'm going to group them a little bit together because I think they're kind of along the same lines. How do you address a gap in your resume if it's due to a medical leave or a mental health leave, or even maybe it's twofold, or if you've been off because you've been helping an elderly parent or caring for someone? How would you address that in an interview or on your resume?
I think similar to what we said before, right? If it was short enough, use the years. If it is longer, and depending how comfortable you feel, you could say medical leave. If you don't feel comfortable, please don't feel like you need to list that. But if let's say you were caring for a family member, put that on there. It's a job. Let them know what you did and what you learned during that time. Potentially you were off for, even if it was a mental health leave, maybe you did some volunteer experience during that time. Put that on there in that time frame instead of what you were doing working. What did you learn during that time? That you took time off for self-care, learned this, focused on such and such. Those would be all great things to show employers that, you were off, but you still didn't lose your personal development.
Great. There's a couple questions about, I think, just ageism in general, and how, if you're experiencing ageism or if you're worried because you have had a longer gap, how do you manage that? Like, how do you sell it through in an interview?
Mute button again. Sorry, Chandra. I'll take this one as well. I think that's a really great question. Definitely something to get me thinking for sure. I think that that what's important to remember is that age gives you experience. Maybe not the exact experience, but there could be some transferable skills that you could definitely share with that employer that might help promote that piece. I think dealing with ageism in the workforce is definitely a hot topic, and at TJX, I know that that's something that's really important to have inclusion and diversity within our associates. So I think that would be beneficial for all employers to do that. I know that that's not always the case, but I think that if you definitely focus on what experiences, what transferable skills you can bring to the table, you're going to do really well in the interview.
Great. Another great question, is it, in terms of your resume, is it best to put in what they're calling your survival jobs that you've done, or only relevant ones? So if you're trying to avoid a gap in your resume, should you be putting in everything that you've done, even if it's maybe not as relevant to what you're going for?
I would say it would be really important to look at the job description and the posting that's out there, and to make it relevant with regards to the skills that the job is looking for. We're not saying to tailor the resume, but at the same time, what are some of the skills, even in those survival jobs in between, that you were able to learn that you can bring into this new role? So it's all about the learnings that you took from all the experiences that you had, whether they were meaningful jobs or something in between.
So would you, in terms of setting up your resume, do you recommend putting kind of like a statement up top that would summarize what you've learned, or how would you recommend you set that up?
So normally it would, we've seen resumes where people would like to put a little bit of a profile up top about what they're bringing into the role, and then list either specific tasks that they've executed at their previous job, or summarize the skills that they've utilized at their job. And it can be versatile to fit their skills that they have with the role that they're applying for.
Okay. One other question here, and then I think we probably need to get on to our next section, but we could probably save some more at the end if we don't get to everything. I'm an older worker and I've had a variety of experience. That can sometimes give the impression that I'm not focused. How do I explain this in an interview?
We see that a lot on resumes and in interviews. So a best practice is chunk your experience. Chunk it instead of do a chronological order, so that this way you can actually frame the experiences so that it doesn't come across that you're not focused, but that it comes across that you're passionate about that. And so it's how do you, flip that narrative, because the interviewer only knows what you present on a resume and only knows what you say to them. So it's up to you to sort of put that glass half full versus half empty.
Great. One last question is, how do I explain that I could not find work because no one would hire me because I had lost my sight?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I'm a little bit stumped on that one. I mean, guys, can the rest of the panel help me? I know that's my turn to answer the question, but I'm wondering if anyone on the panel can help me with that one.
I can jump in. So first of all, I'm sorry that you experienced that. So on behalf of all interviews out there, you shouldn't have felt that. A couple of things that you can do. There are certainly other things that may not require your sight to be able to do the job. So what I would recommend is in that interview with the candidate, you just portray and put forward what are the skills and what can you do and what accommodations do you need to be successful, because it is the employer's responsibility to help support and to help accommodate you. So if you, again, just going back to the more you can educate your interviewer and the more information you can provide to us, the better we are equipped to help support you so that you don't keep getting those negative outcomes that make you feel perhaps underappreciated, because you have other transferable skills that you can definitely lean in on and can provide success to an organization.
That's really great. And Tanya, I hope you don't mind, and Adele, me jumping in on this one too. I think this is where it becomes really important to educate yourself on the employer. Research, what are their values? What do they stand up for? Where lies your values in comparison to them? And then also definitely have a good understanding of what the role itself requires for the position. And then from there, you can make your decisions based on those pieces and what's important.
One final question. I just lost it, but I think is volunteering the same as work experience?
I think that's me again. Absolutely 100% volunteering is the same as work experience. I think it really shows a lot of great value to the interviewer from candidate perspective. And if they're comparing apples to apples, that person that has that volunteer experience and that goes there and is passionate and puts their hand up and is really excited about doing things even unpaid. I think that just goes to show what a great candidate that you are when you take advantage of those opportunities.
I would add it shows initiative, which I think as interviewers or even as hiring managers, people really value as really going out there and putting into volunteering, because we pick up on skills during those volunteering times as well.
Great. Okay, I think we should move on to our next section, and if there's time at the end, we can come back to anything that we've missed. So the next section is on upskilling. So I did just see a question about virtual work and customer service, and now it just skipped away from me. Hang on. Where did it go? The question was about, I think, getting work to work in customer service in a virtual capacity and what skills would be required. But I seem to, oh, here we go. Virtual work is a great opportunity. What upskilling skills would be attractive for customer service?
Tanya, I would ask for your help on this one.
So to be able to demonstrate upskilling virtually on a virtual platform, it's really going to come down to body language. You've got to be able to engage eye to eyes. I know that's the hardest thing for us to do because sometimes you can't see people or there's distractions. There's people walking by outside. There's birds chirping. So establish a focal point to look at to engage with the person. That'll demonstrate customer service. Another thing to be able to upskill virtually for customer service is demonstrate curiosity. And how you're going to do that is ask questions about the company. So do your research, go onto their webpage, go onto their landing page, look at what careers or job opportunities they have, check out what's new. Sometimes everybody has newsletters or financial updates or something. Just find one point that you could just resonate with and bring that to that virtual interview, and that'll demonstrate initiative, curiosity, and you'll be able to engage with the person. And by default and the outcome, you're engaging customer to customer, so front facing to front facing. Team, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
I have a question about that question a little bit. I'm just wondering when the question asks how to upskill virtually for customer service, does that mean a position that is a virtual position in customer service?
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
If they want to come back, that's what I took from it in reading it.
I guess the only thing that I would have to add on to that is just to, leverage the technology. Maybe take some courses or there's lots of information out there on YouTube and things like that on how to get a better understanding of these types of tools that we are able to talk to each other through. So Zoom calls and MS Teams and lots of different features like that. I would really maybe suggest that there's some education there and some research on the part of the candidate to gain some knowledge that way.
Okay. I'm just looking for more questions here in this. Hang on. How can we learn about the values and principles of an organization?
Oh, I'm going to take this one. This is my wheelhouse. So from working in trying to share about employment brand, I love this question. But really, it should be, there's lots of places to look. So the career site is a great place to look about the values of the organization. Most companies will put something on their career site. There's also opportunities like LinkedIn for a networking site. You might see some information on their LinkedIn page that talks about who the organization is, what they stand for. There's also not only just the career site, but there's the overall company website. Example, if you looked at our TJX.com website, we have a whole section for our values and our corporate responsibilities. You'll also see there could be social media that you can follow on the companies, and you'll start to see different, more organic showing of what their values are just by what they post and what they share. So I think those are a few key areas to really find out about the values of a company.
Great. This is an interesting one. How do you know when an online course or certification is actually legitimate and helpful?
That's a great question. Luckily, it's my turn. You know what? That's a really good question. If any of you other panelists have an answer to that, I'm not sure.
I can take a stab. I mean, Google is a great tool, right? And so, I mean, you can Google the course. You can see if there's any reviews on that course. If it's a paid course, you might be able to reach out to some individual, to the people that are hosting it and running it, and say, can I speak to somebody who's gone through the course before, to see if it could be relevant to what I'm looking for. Another way to look at it is if you could potentially look on LinkedIn for people that have done that course, and maybe just message them directly to see if they found that course valuable, or if they had any feedback from it. But sometimes Google and Google reviews are a really great place to start.
Good one, Adele. Thank you.
There's a question about IT. And I don't know if we can answer skills required to enter the IT world in Canada. I know we have an IT team at TJX, but I'm not sure if anyone on the panel would be able to speak to this one.
That would really vary. I can take it on, but that would really vary. So we have a number of different streams within our IT area at TJX, and depending on where we need some of the talent, it will be in some of the postings that we have out there. We do have an early in career program, so I would definitely set up maybe some notifications that we have on our website with regards to IT, and then you would get notified when a job is posted. You would be able to go and look for some of the skills that are required in order to enter.
Maya, I might be able to add on to that too.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Government of Canada website and you're looking for, skills required for IT, the Government of Canada has done a fantastic job about putting what some very common skills are for different areas of the business. So that might be a great place to start. Is just our own government's website might be able to give you a little bit of a head start. They'll probably even be able to tell you kind of what starting salaries would be and what you could expect, for, when you enter into that field. They also talk about, there's a place on there where it talks about if it's an emerging field that's going to be in high demand, or there's a part there too where it talks about maybe that career is declining in that certain skill set. So I know there's a section in that Government of Canada. We use it for market intelligence, so I know it's there, but it'll be a great place to start as well.
Perfect, thank you, Adele.
There is a question about, do you have volunteer IT positions? So maybe we could just speak in general more about our co-ops or early in career roles at TJX.
So yeah, so we do have those co-ops and early in careers in IT. And again, depending on what stream of IT. So I would encourage everyone to sort of always check out our website. We do post everything there. Our co-op opportunities are semestered. So you'll find them at key periods of time throughout the year, and they'll be on the website. With regards to our early in career, those would happen more frequently as opportunities become available. And even during COVID and the pandemic, we have seen a lift and an uptake in job opportunities. So they are out there. So I would encourage everyone to explore those with us and with everybody else.
Great. Okay, I think we can move on to prepping for a virtual interview. And I did see a question in here. I think it was just, what do you need to bring to your virtual interview?
So that's a really good question. If I was to be into a virtual interview, I'd probably have my resume off to the side of my desk. I have some notes that I prepared that maybe I wanted to ensure that I highlighted about my experiences, about my skills. I'd have that in a kind of another section on my ready to go. And then I'd have a list of questions that I wanted to ask the interviewer to really pull out what their culture is like, what their company is like, what the job is like, what the culture is like. So that's what I would bring to a virtual interview. And then, I mean, we could be cheesy, right? Bring your best self, and we want to make sure that you're professional and engaged and ready to go. But in terms of collateral, those are probably the things that I'd make sure I had with me.
Are there any other tips for prepping, like from a technical perspective? I know I am not absolutely. A Zoom person, so I have been all over the map today trying to make sure I was on. Do we have any tips?
Absolutely. Prep in advance for sure. Make sure you have the appropriate application that is being used for that virtual interview, because all different employers are using different applications, and there's all kinds out there. So make sure that that's downloaded properly on your device. Make sure you have a quiet space, no interruptions. Sometimes I know that's hard, especially me, I'm a mom of 3, so I don't always get peace and quiet, but really try to get some support there where you can to ensure you have that quiet time for an hour. Have a test run. Try it out, try the application out, make sure everything's working. And I'd really recommend that you partner up with the recruiter who has scheduled that interview for you. If there is any questions, you know, typically a recruiter would be able to help you along as they are doing the coordination of the interview. So, you know, I hope that they can support anyone that's having, you know, any technical difficulties. But I think first and foremost is to test the software and the IT. And another thing I would bring, Adele, is maybe a copy of the job posting so that you have a good idea of, you know, what the role is, and maybe kind of some pointers or highlights there for what you want to talk to that really aligns with the position from your experiences and your skills.
That's a great ad. Yeah.
One more question, just back to the volunteer question. Just wanted to confirm that no, the question was, aren't co-ops for students? Is there a volunteer opportunity? So maybe can we just clarify how that works? We don't have unpaid volunteer roles at TJX. So Tanya, maybe if you want to just speak to that.
Yeah,
quickly.
so all our opportunities, whether co-ops or internships or early in career, they're all paid gainful employment opportunities. From a volunteer perspective, we don't offer that because everyone is bringing a skill to the table. If you are, though, looking for volunteer hours to do a couple of things, to test your interest in it, to see if it is a mutually compatible opportunity for you, there are places you can certainly partner with, and I would certainly encourage you to have conversations with your counselors, career guidance centers, different affiliates within the cities of GTA and all their chapter affiliates. They'll be able to help partner you up with individuals and opportunities where you can volunteer kind of as a test run to determine if that's what you want to do, so that it doesn't look like you're jumping place to place. It doesn't look like you're not intentionally focused. It doesn't look like you're not committed. And so that would be an opportunity to have some further conversations with your circle of guidance around you.
Okay, thank you. I love this question. Is a follow-up, why does this keep jumping around on me? Basically, the question is a follow-up phone call after having applied to a job or a company considered old school? Does anyone pick up the phone anymore in this virtual world, or should it be done via email? What's the best way to follow up?
That's a great question, especially if anybody's answering the phones in this environment where most of us are working remotely. I would suggest that that an email would be a good way to follow up.
Yeah, and to add what Maya said is that way the person who did interview can take that time and give you that proper feedback or that proper response. Sometimes if you called, maybe they're doing 2 other things and they might not take the time that you deserve to have a response. So if you send an email, you know, they can answer it when they have some time and they can put a bit more thought into it.
And in the same breath, what's the time frame to follow up? What's best practice when you send that email? Should you wait a week? Is it a couple of days? Is it immediately following the interview? How do you manage the follow-up process?
There's a couple of different ways to address that. So it all depends on what is the intent of your follow-up communication. If the intent is as a thank you to their interview for their time and giving you the opportunity to connect, that would be immediately right after that interview. If the intent is to do a follow-up and, you know, I'm excited to learn more, hear more about next steps, rule of thumb is give it anywhere from 4 to 5 days and send that follow-up email. Just very short and sweet statement style. Really enjoyed meeting with you on said date. Put in the date. Remember, remind people there's a lot of things going on for that interviewer. So while it may be top of mind for you, it may not necessarily be top of mind for the interviewer. It doesn't mean it wasn't important. It's just there's been a lot of time that's gone through them between your connect with them. So just remind them, we met such and such date. I enjoyed our time. Look forward to hearing from you. You know, regards, Tanya. You know, and that would be more than appropriate. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add to that.
You're good.
Okay. This is a fun question. Do you advise that we dress up formally or semi-formally for a TJX virtual interview? There's so much above the keyboard dressing. So what's the deal in the virtual world?
Yeah, good call, Libby. It's really what people see, right? And so you can do some research based on the company. So you had asked about TJX. We have we're a business casual environment. So you want to dress for the type of job that you're going to be doing. So for TJX, you know, a business casual, you know, a nice top, no rips and tears or anything like that would be ideal. Potentially, if you're interviewing for, you know, a banking firm, you might want to be a bit more dressed up, right? That's what I would definitely recommend, potentially wearing a blazer or something a little bit more professional. So do a little bit of research on the company, a little bit on the role. Even if you look at their career site, they'll have images posted and you'll be able to see what people look like while they're working in on the job. And that might help really kind of tailor what you want to wear as well during that time.
The next question, which I think is another great question, is it still acceptable to prepare questions for them at the end of the interview?
Absolutely. I think it's a good practice to definitely do that. I think it's a great way to dig into company culture and also learn more about the role, like the specific day-to-day positions. So I think good questions to ask are about the position itself, what the day-to-day looks like, what the hiring manager is looking for in a candidate is also a great question to ask. Another one would be, what are the biggest challenges for the position? I think that would pull a lot of information for you as a candidate to really evaluate whether or not this is going to be the opportunity that you want to continue to pursue. And then ask about the company, ask about that manager's experience in working with their company, just to get a bit of a culture understanding and see if it's the right fit for you. As much as a job, you want a hiring manager to want you for a job, you've got to want that job too. So I think it's great. It's a great opportunity. Interviews are not just one way to ask the questions as well.
That's great. There's some comments in here about doing your research is key, knowing the mission statement and the job description. So it's all great advice from the participants. Another question was, and it's a little bit general, but I think we've all been there. How do you answer an unexpected question, or a question that maybe you don't know the answer right away, or it's caught you off guard a little bit? How do you answer that?
So I think a couple of ways. One is allow yourself the time to think, and then also if there's not a bit of a clarity, or it's more of a general question, answer it in a sense of what it means for you. So I think the interviewer will always probe a little bit more if they had a thought in mind, or if they were going somewhere with the initial question. So I would say, listen to the question. Feel free to re-ask the question if there is no clarity around it, or ask for an example, and then take the time to really draw on your experiences.
Yeah, and if I was to add to what Maya said, it's okay to tell them that, oh, you know, I've never been asked this before. Let me think through it, because it shows the interviewer how you process information and what you think. And as long as you can process the information and say, well, this is what I would do in this situation, or, you know, I've never been in a situation like that before. If I was, this is how I would handle it. Then the interviewer can show how you process information, and it shows your critical thinking.
Another question about virtual interviews is, do the interviews take into consideration the body language when you're still even in a virtual setting? I see a big nod from Tanya.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's the one thing that is completely in your control as the interviewee. And recognizing that the connection you have to make with that interviewer has to happen instantaneously. When you're in person, there's always a walk to an office. There's always a bit of a gap where you can, you know, talk a little bit more freely, whether you're in a store. Oh, look at what we have here. Oh, how's the weather? In a virtual, you just go right into it. And so that eye contact, the smile on your face, the lighting around you, the focus on the interviewer, asking them questions, re-asking the question they ask you if you need time to think about it. So use those tactics. Have a glass of water. If you're trying to process, take a sip of the water to give you that pause moment to catch your thoughts, to then come across engaging to them. So those are just some tips for virtual.
That's great. And another thought too, like, what about your actual background in your setting? Does that impact things? Like, as an interviewer, will you get distracted? Do you recommend blurring your backdrop? Does it say something about you if you have a different backdrop? What's the recommended approach there?
It could be anything. Your backdrops is a personal reflection of you. So it's important to feel comfortable and belong. So if you're going to have posters or pictures up that may not necessarily be the most appropriate, then I would certainly encourage a blur out. However, we also need to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. We're all working from home for the most part virtually. You know, we may be working parents, we may have fur children, right? They're going to come into play. It's all okay, right? So don't sweat those little things. As long as you're comfortable in your space, you're portraying a positive image. If you want to backdrop it and blur it out, go ahead, blur it out. If you don't, that's okay too. It's personal preference.
Okay. I think we should move on to the last section about networking virtually. And there was one kind of very general statement, which I feel encompasses a lot. How do you network in this virtual world? So what are the tips and tricks to making connections when there aren't the same kind of in-person opportunities that we would have had pre-COVID?
Mm-hmm. I think our biggest friend on networking virtually is LinkedIn. You know, if it's social networking for professionals, right? It's the Facebook for professionals. And so people are on LinkedIn with the expectation that people might reach out to them. So, you know, don't be afraid to use LinkedIn to reach out to people. You can connect with people that you don't know. You know, my recommendation for something like that is if you are connecting with someone that there's no obvious connection, put that in the note to make sure that they know why you're hoping to reach out to them versus just clicking connect or you know, be friends with or whatever it is on LinkedIn. But that's a great way to start those conversations. Again, I'm going to go back to LinkedIn, but they have groups on LinkedIn for areas that you might be interested in. So, you know, let's say you're like Libby and you're in PR. There's tons of public relations groups on LinkedIn that you could join. And then you become a member of that. You can ask questions in that group and start the dialogue that way. So I think that would be my default area to start those conversations.
Great. Do you find, is virtual networking through LinkedIn, is it an opportunity to maybe ask for an informational interview, to connect with people? There's other questions about LinkedIn. Can you block people from seeing you on LinkedIn? How does it work?
Absolutely. I'm not sure how many of you have LinkedIn accounts already, but I think if you don't have a LinkedIn account, you most likely have some other type of social media account, whether it be Facebook, Instagram. I don't even know anymore. I think I'm too old for some of these, but there's tons of social media outlets out there, and they all have privacy features on there that you can change if you need. If you want to reach out directly, you can do that if that person has their inbox set up for that, and you can change your privacy as you feel you need. But I wanted to also just say something as well about the networking piece. What you all are doing here today is really great effort in networking. How many people are actually on this call today? These are all people that you can reach out to, your friends, join these community events, your family. Word of mouth is huge. I know that I lean on people I know's recommendations all the time for many different aspects in my life. I learn from colleagues, I learn from my friends, I learn from my neighbors. I think that, you know, keeping those opportunities open by having those conversations with others is really a big piece of networking. Let people know that you're looking for a job, because you just never know what can come back from that.
Are there any resources out there that you might recommend that could help updating your LinkedIn profile, tips and tricks on how to make it stand out and how to go through LinkedIn? Is it through LinkedIn that you learn how to update it, or if there's any other resources you could share, that would be great.
Is that for me?
There we go. I was on mute.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes, definitely. So one is LinkedIn will always remind you to update your profile in order to make yourself a little bit more marketable. So definitely, as you are going through the profile, there's tips and tricks on things that you can add to LinkedIn. Another good feature on LinkedIn as well is to ask for recommendations. So you're able to reach out, whether it's a newcomer in Canada that would like to reach out to a contact from their previous job from another country, whether it's a volunteering experience, you can always reach out to your contacts and have them recommend you on your profile for a skill that you have. So that would be another way of marketing yourself. And also at the top of your LinkedIn profile, it's a little bit of a resume, but there is an option to leave a little bit of a profile and explain whether you're looking for a job in a certain industry, or whether you're offering certain skills. So that's definitely the first thing that shows up on a LinkedIn profile. And then using some of those keywords that are specific to certain jobs.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and I think this is a really great one. Can you network virtually, or how can you network virtually if you're not on social media? So what are the opportunities in this virtual world if you're not socially savvy or interested in social?
Well, I'll start that, and then I guess I'll lean into my peers here. Just by nature of virtual, that connectivity it is something that, because of COVID, it is one of the only ways right now to be able to connect. I know it's not the answer maybe we want to hear, but because we're all following social distancing and we're all in a lockdown, your immediate circle is probably contained to your household or to one other individual, depending on what your circumstances are. So having one social media platform is something that I would recommend. So if there's only one you were to invest in right now, think of the one that resonates with you, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's through a community partnership, as an upskill, pick the one and start there. Take the first step and see how comfortable you are with it, play around with it, and then make some decisions if you want to continue and add to your toolkit of social media. So that's how I would start this, and I'll bounce it over to Adele to see if there's anything you would add to that.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to echo what Chandra said, because I really enjoyed what she was saying, is that she said, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to people in your life, right? They might be able to, you know, maybe you're talking to one of your friends that you hadn't reached out to in a while. Give them a phone call, have a conversation with them, let them know what you're looking for, potentially have a change in career. They might know someone who knows something. And it could be through a phone conversation. It might not be as easy, like as a social media platform, but, you know, Tanya's right, like try one, but if you're not on social media, that might be a way to go about things. And, you know, we joked earlier about who picks up the phone these days. Well, you know what, some people still do, and it might be a good resource.
Another one I wanted to add as well is that there's a lot of agencies out there that support newcomers coming in and with getting their feet wet, whether it be a community partnership agency or a regular agency. And that's a really great way to hit the floor running, get some work experience. And I know that typically agencies are working in-house and pick up the phone as well. So it's not necessarily needed to, you know, to have any type of technology there, if I can make that suggestion.
That's great. Well, I think we're coming to the end here, folks. So maybe I'll pass it over to the Dress for Success team to conclude. I think there's another poll we have to do.
Okay, I will launch the post-workshop survey right now. See that pop up on your screen. So.
There was, I will call out, there was a question, can we reach out to you on LinkedIn? So I think it's safe to say that yes, all of our panelists would love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out. And if there's any other questions, maybe we can do a follow-up. I know there was a lot blowing up in the chat, so hopefully we answered the majority of your questions, and maybe this just means we have to come back and do it again. I will also call out that we just want to thank everybody for coming and for spending the hour with us. We do have 5 $50 gift card giveaways for the participants in today's session. So the Dress for Success team will draw some names and then I think email the winners in the next couple days. So hopefully you can go for a little shop and get excited and get ready for your upcoming interviews. But thank you very much. Thanks for having us. It's been a great night.
Great. Well, thank you. And for all of the clients and participants who are doing the post-workshop survey, once you have finished that, feel free to drop off. I will say, for anyone who came late, we are recording this session, so we will be sending it to all affiliates, and then they will be sending it out to all the participants. So don't worry if you missed something or something was too fast, it's all recorded.
I'm just going to say a quick thank you and shout out to the TJX team on behalf of all of us at Dress for Success Canada Foundation and the affiliates across the country. And I hope I've got you all on my list: Libby, Tanya, Maya, Chandra, Adele, Julie, and Vanessa. So I hope I haven't missed anybody, but thank you all for your participation tonight. It's been a great hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
We'll
Thank you
again
so
soon.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Stay
Bye-bye.
well, stay safe. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.